but then tells me that everything's normal, right? And I thought, okay, everything's normal. So is it just normal for me to be feeling like this at 18? And, my physical and mental health was just in the drain. And so I just thought there has to be something else going on. My gut instinct, funnily enough, was actually correct. There was actually something going on with my thyroid the whole entire time, because ding, 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 I had all the symptoms, right? Symptoms is the body's way of communicating to you as well.
Hi, my name is Thrishi. Thank you so much for your precious time in watching this amazing conversation. I wanted to tell you real quick why I started this thing called the BioBelly Show. My best friend Ankit was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis around the peak of the pandemic. And I felt he did not know how it is to find root cause healing and how to find a long-term solution for his issues. Once I figured that out and I saw an intelligent person like him going through a vicious cycle of crippling symptoms that are changing his overall lifestyle and his relationship with food and his relationship with movement, I realized that the most important thing I can do is become a bridge to serve people with information on how it is we can bring root cause healing to the world, right? And look, with gut issues, it's so weird because the gut is the central part of our whole body, right? And so disease always starts with a small dysfunction with the gut, as far as I am learning, right? So my goal for this podcast is to speak with every single gut healer that I can, right? Whether that's a naturopath, whether that's a gastroenterologist, whether that's an IBS dietitian, whether that's a CBT expert, whether that's an EDMR specialist, whether that's a gut hypnotherapist. Basically, I want to speak with everyone who heals guts because I want to make it very accessible how it is our body works, how it is we can get long-term relief, and how it is we should optimally live for an optimized gut, thereby having an optimized health. And I really hope you enjoy this conversation. If it serves you, please like and subscribe because it does support us and show us that our dream is coming true and we're actually healing guts for a living. So without further ado, let's hop into the episode. Hello, everyone. Today's guest is someone who has become a go-to guide for women who feel like they're doing everything right, yet still struggling with bloating, fatigue, hormonal issues, and confusing symptoms that doctors often overlook. She's a functional nutritionist who blends gut health, hormones, lifestyle, and testing into a method that actually gets women answers and results. What I love most about her is how she breaks down complex health topics into simple, practical steps that anyone can follow without fear, without overwhelm, and without restrictive diets. Please help me in welcoming Ash from 360 Health, a powerhouse helping women restore their energy, digestion, and confidence by finally getting to the real root of their symptoms. Ash, thank you so much for your precious time today.
Thanks for having me, Trishi, and thank you so much for that perfect introduction. You really put me on a pedestal. I love that. And you nailed it completely. That's exactly what I do.
And deservedly so, right? You are a champion, Ash. And I've seen that luckily through God's grace, I was able to see you through Instagram and see all your beautiful work. And it's like the wisdom that you provide free of cost. It really warms my heart because it's just what we need in this landscape of gut health, as we were talking about a bit before. Ash, I would love to start with your story. I would love to learn a bit about you and a bit about what it was that drove you to this path of now ultimately healing guts for a living.
It's a good question. Well, you hear a lot of the time that a coach's journey is what has inspired them to become a coach themselves. And I hate to admit it, but I am a cliche because I am exactly the same, Shishi. When I was 18 years old, so I'm 31 now. When I was 18 years old, I remember feeling so heavy. I had low energy. I was bloated all the time. I was putting on weight and I had no idea why, because I was going to the gym, I was eating healthy, eating my mom's cooking, which Filipino food's pretty lean, right? And I felt like I was a pretty active 18-year-old. But I had all of these symptoms that just didn't feel quite right to me. I was also constipated, I had my skin breaking out, my cycles were irregular, just so many things that didn't feel right for an 18-year-old to feel. Okay. So I started talking to my mum. I always trust your mum's advice. Well, in the most part. And she said, "Oh, it might be a thyroid because, I have hypothyroidism." I didn't know that. So then I went to the doctor's office and I sat down and told them exactly what I was experiencing. I said, "Doc, I don't feel like this is normal because none of my friends are experiencing this. And also, I'm so goddamn young. I'm 18 years old. Why am I feeling like I'm in, the 50, 60-year-old's body?" Right? So then I asked him, "Can you test my thyroid? Because maybe there's something going on because my mom's also experiencing that as well. And I've heard that it can be genetic." So he goes and does the blood test, but then tells me that everything's normal, right? And I thought, okay, everything's normal. So is it just normal for me to be feeling like this at 18? And of course, when you're 18, you're a little bit naive. You're still new to the world and, learning things and going through your own life experience. And so, of course, as most people do, you just believe what the doctor says, right? So I just walked away. Honestly, I was quite defeated and I just thought, okay, it's probably in my head. I'll just get on with it, right? After that, fast forward, basically I had 10 really long years of suffering with depression, suffering with anxiety. I struggled with my weight like the entire time. So I was constantly yo-yo dieting, doing extreme diets, doing bodybuilding, all this crazy stuff just to feel good in my body, which only backfired and, impacted my health worse. I was constantly going through toxic relationships because I really believe that your health does manifest in things around you. So I was attracting the wrong people in my life. I was going through jobs. I just wasn't happy in them. And I just had a really, really poor relationship with my mental health and my body. And so I really, really struggled for those 10 years, Trishi. I really lent into alcohol and drug use at the time. And now that I'm looking back, a whole different version of myself, I can really see that I was just coping. I was just trying to, I guess, get by with feeling the way that I was feeling and not really having the right support or the right guidance. So I got to a point maybe at 27, and it's funny because I meet a lot of women that say that at 27, like something just happens. I don't know if it's something in the cosmos or what for the spiritual people out there, but you just go through this kind of spiritual awakening where you just realize, what the hell am I doing with my life? Some people have it younger, some people have it later, some people have it, many times in their lives. But for me, it was a moment where I hit rock bottom one night. I got blackout drunk and it just led to a really dangerous situation. And I just remember waking up the next day and going into the office. And I had a 9 to 5 corporate job because my background was in business marketing. And I remember just looking around thinking, I'm so goddamn miserable. Like, I'm really unhappy and I'm just not well. And I thought to myself, am I just going to keep doing this same thing? Waking up, feeling tired, exhausted, hating myself, getting on the train, feeling dead inside. Sounds grim, but that's really how I felt. Just living on autopilot is what I felt. I didn't really feel like I had a purpose or like a spark in life. And, my physical and mental health was just in the drain. And so I just thought there has to be something else going on. And so then I started Googling, because that was before ChatGPT, and I found functional medicine. And I got really interested by it because I really had a passion already for holistic medicine. I thought holistic medicine is really cool. We came from holistic modalities, right? We've lost connection to that. We need to connect back with that. And I really loved that it was evidence-based. So it's blood testing, it's based on optimizing your health, and it combines, conventional and Eastern medicine. I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a go. So I saw a functional practitioner Her name's Mandy. She actually works in WA. If Mandy ever listens to this, hello. But she honestly changed my life. She did a functional blood test, Trishy, and she actually found that I had elevated antibodies. So if people don't know what that is associated with issues with the thyroid, right? So I actually was showing really high levels of TSH and really high levels of antibodies. So in fact, my gut instinct, funnily enough, was actually correct. There was actually something going on with my thyroid the whole entire time because ding, 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 I had all the symptoms, right? Symptoms is the body's way of communicating to you as well. So I had thyroid issues going on and I had no idea that I had what they call leaky gut going on, right? And I soon found out that leaky gut is a big driver of autoimmunity, which we can chat about later. And so the IBS that I was experiencing and the thyroid issues were connected. And I remember when she told me, oh, you've got gut issues going on, I didn't believe her because this was the first time I ever heard of things like leaky gut and all of this sort of jazz, right? This was baby Ash before I became a gut practitioner. And I just trusted her. I went through the process. We did a protocol. And within 6 months, I was symptom free, right? And after that, Trishy, I quit my job, right? I thought, stuff this. I'm quitting my job. I'm going to do something better with my life because I had better physical health and better mental health that allowed me to have the capacity to make some positive changes, right? Because your health does dictate everything in your life, I truly believe. And so it was keeping me kind of stuck in a job that was unfulfilling and, those relationships I was attracting and like sabotaging behaviors, like going around and around in circles for 10 years. And so I quit my job. I went back to my parents' house. My mom, she was so angry at me because she's ethnic, right? And, quitting your 9-to-5 job is the worst thing you can do. They're a bit old school. Those out there that are ethnic background will understand. And she said, what? Why did you quit your job? And I said, Mom, just trust me. Life is calling me to go a different direction. So I took out a huge loan, right? And I used that to study functional medicine because I decided, Trishy, in that moment, I don't want another woman to have to experience 10 years of suffering that I experienced. And if I can help just one woman avoid that and spend her 20s, fulfilled and happy and achieving all the things she wants, getting her ahead in life, then I'm going to bloody do that. Right. So that's how it led me to functional medicine. And what I do now, why I love doing this, I get to help people every day and I get to meet amazing people like you that want to spread, the education to empower other people to also get back on top of their health and in the driver's seat of their lives.
Wow. That's not a cliche story at all. That's like that's
a long story.
I love it. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable. I mean, what's so interesting to me is how gut health, that root cause, how it can manifest as so many different, it can manifest in so many different parts of your life without you really introspecting. And I feel after that, maybe that event of that night where there was something that went wrong and the next morning you went to work and you were like, whoa, let me just zoom out. This is not who I want to be. That I feel like that happens to so many people time and time again. And even like healers, like who I've spoken with, it's like it just hits them that life is too short. And if we're trying to make the most of this beautiful thing called life, we have to do what we feel we can do for decades and something that's fulfilling us, right? It was just, this is a bit of a digress, but it's just really warmed my heart so much. It's like, I was looking at this podcast, not podcast, but just like a person talking in front of a screen by himself. And his name is Graham Weaver, this like Stanford professor. And when he was talking about, he was basically, I think it was his final note with his class, like it was his last class. And he's like, students, you guys did great, fantastic semester, by the way, let me just give you a quick 20-minute lesson on how I think you guys should live your life. And sorry, it wasn't 20 minutes. It was actually like 60 minutes. It was long, but I still watched it. And because a lot of people recommended it to me. And just like you, I was in a bit of a spot where I didn't think the needle is moving in terms of me being fulfilled with what I was doing. I was a sales manager. I sold mobile offices, storage containers for a living, and wasn't fitting my vibe. I didn't feel, and while that's a respectable job, it was just, I felt like I can't do this for decades, man. I got to do something. I got to get out of it. And so fast forward to now, I was watching the podcast. I'm sorry, not podcast, a walkthrough, and a seminar. And this dude said in 60 minutes, I can condense it in 3 lines. He's like, 1, do hard things. 2, do your thing. And 3, do it for decades. And when I thought about that, I was like, wow, do hard things. Okay, then what's hard? What challenges me? And to be honest, Ash, my whole life, the only thing that I feel like I did that I was like, I'm proud of this dude. Like, TG, you did well here. You checked the box in this aspect of life. It was my health. So like the peak of the pandemic, I ballooned up to like 205 pounds. I'm not a very tall person, so 205 pounds is a lot for me. So I was very obese, didn't have a very good relationship with food. And I think from like 2022 to 23, all the way to now, I went to, just like you, like put yourself into bodybuilding, into fitness. Luckily, I was able to do that in a bit of a more healthier sense. And I was able to lose all that weight. But along with that, what I truly gained, instead of just like a better body, was a clearer mind, right? Having more clarity, having more improved self-esteem, and knowing that I'm worth more. Like that if I am to invest in a career, invest in doing something, if I have that same dedication and discipline and love for what I'm doing into this, how fulfilled would I be? So I was like, all right, let me do something hard, because losing weight hard, fulfilling. So I was like, okay, in my head, okay, let me do something that's hard and it's got to be fulfilling. So I looked at, right. And actually, I looked at the statistics, and I can share my story a little bit deeper later on. But it's like, because a lot of even my family members and my loved ones had gut issues, it was something that just came up time and time again. And just like you were saying, thyroid, I have seen levothyroxine on my mom's drawer, my mom's bedside, for a while, and I never knew what it was. And she always like used to tell me, like, my right side, everything from the top of my head all the way to the pinky on my right pinky, like all of my foot, everything hurts. Like, and I was be like, that's so weird. And she's like, yeah, because of my period cycle. We talk very transparently. She's like, because of my period cycle, during those like few 3 to 4 days, I get a lot of pain. And I was like, okay, I got to do something in the gut health space, because this is definitely something that I'm seeing time and time again. And when I looked at it, like the statistics, it's like 10% of the global population has IBS, right? And so I was like, okay, it's a hard thing, right? It is crazy.
And it's increasing as time goes by as well. And I think even with thyroid issues, up to 60% of people are walking around without knowing that they have it. They haven't been tested for it correctly, which is crazy. That means that when you're or the person that's listening, sitting at work next to someone at the desk, one of them likely has a thyroid condition. They probably don't even know.
Yeah, that's wild to me. And I feel like a big part of that is testing, right? Being able to properly have a healer, if we can like move to more tangible side of things, like the person you're consulting, you're giving them a lot of power, because it's literally what they say that might shape the next few years of your life and your perception of what's going on in your own body, right? And that basically gives healers like you such a beautiful but massive responsibility. Because it's like you guys are basically telling us what one is that root cause, and what's that streamlined path to recovery, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really powerful to not only give people answers because it finally validates the symptoms that they're experiencing for so long for a lot of them, but also gives them hope and belief that, oh wow, I've seen that, 100 other people before me have gotten these results and it is possible for me too. And I really love that you asked about my story because sometimes I forget to share that with people. And when I share it with them, they're like, wow, you're literally showing people what's possible. And sometimes I forget how powerful that is. The same thing with your story about overcoming your weight challenges at the time. So many people never achieve the body that they want because they can't overcome the difficult obstacle of that. They don't have the resilience or the resources or the tenacity. So, I think what you were saying, the first thing that comes to my mind is that, and I'm going to ask you a question is, when do you think people grow most?
That's a great question.
People grow most.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Give us your answer. What do you think?
Well, I look at a lot of I love being a sponge to wisdom. And there's this one person, Dean Graziosi. He's a bit of like a life coach, and he has like a best friend, Tony Robbins. They both do everything together. Right? You love him, right? He's such a powerhouse of a guy. Like literally, it's my dream to meet him. But one thing you have his book? I love that guy. So that guy, he said that change happens when the pain of your current moment, the pain you're currently in is greater. Oh, sorry. The pain of change is greater than the pain of staying the same. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know how to put that in words. That's kind of my limited perception of change.
Yes. Yeah, so there is actually in human psychology, they say that there's two circumstances that people most create change in. And the smaller part of that is people create change because they're so motivated to change, right? But then up to 90% of people, got to figure out the correct statistic there. I think it's something crazy like 80, 90% or even more. 90% of people create change when they're in pain. And that's based on human psychology. And I've seen it myself. I mean, I literally went through that. You went through that too. You didn't like your body. You felt you had low self-worth. You're probably hating yourself at the time and, not in a good mental place either. It's unfortunate that we do need to experience pain to change, but I guess that's just how our brains work. But if it can help you move forward and out of a difficult situation, then so be it. But the answer I was going to tell you is, because I love this quote so much, I really want to share it, is you grow most facing uncomfortability. And if you really think about it, when you're coasting through life or things are really easy at your job or, that's kind of the best example I can think of right now. But when things are really crazy at your job, you're not being challenged, right? You're not being challenged to upskill. You're not being challenged to do something different. You're not being challenged to think outside of the box a lot of the time. You're just doing the same thing every day. And so you don't really grow when you're comfortable a lot of the time. So it's really facing adversity in no matter what situation that is, whether it's your health or whether it's personal circumstances, that I find that people grow the most. And I think maybe people listening, they can reflect on their own lives and feel if that's true for them or not as well. I think a lot of people would probably agree. What do you think?
I think so. I think you're absolutely right. And it's a beautiful light to with which we can see our own problems, right? Our own issues. We all have some small issues that we face day to day. It's like that's just a small pedestal on which we can rise and become a greater version of ourselves and have a greater sense of self-esteem, knowing that we've been through that, and also at the same time being someone who can guide others who face that same issue.
Yeah. I think something that comes up often for me when when women come through my door is that they don't believe, a lot of them don't believe that it's possible for them to get better because they've struggled with health conditions for, some people 20 years. And unfortunately, they've also been, chewed up and spat out by the conventional medical system, specialists. They've tried working with naturopaths, other people, and they just haven't been able to find the right modality or the right treatment for them yet. And I use that word yet on purpose because I believe it's possible for everyone to heal with the right support. And it's sad because they don't believe that they can change, right? And so much of it comes down to your beliefs. It sounds like you like to read a lot of, psychology and personal development, which I love, Trishi. But we operate 90% from our beliefs and our subconscious. And so this is why I love supporting mindset. And I think that is a big part of healing the gut and just any transformation that you're trying to achieve in your life.
Yeah, 150%. It's really a mind game. And before we started recording, we were talking about the gut brain connection. It's so key. Like time and time again, it's really that it's like what we tell ourselves, and it's our mental perception of things that does eventually manifest into reality, right? Super, super interesting stuff. Moving on, Ash, it's more of the nitty gritty of how it is your process looks like from beginning to end with a person with gut issues. Could you walk us through how it is you, one, try to properly understand what the issue might be, all the way to the end where it's like you have a long-term plan for them. They know exactly what might be going wrong in their gut. They're informed and they're empowered with all the right tools that you provide to them.
So when people come through my door, Trishi, and I say this to every single person that I meet, I say to them, my job today is to understand you. Because I can have 10 women with IBS or 10 women with Hashimoto's, but the driving trigger for them, what's triggering their environment or what's going on in their habits or their nutrition or, their history, which is so important. What happened when they were, from ages 0 to 11, 15? Did they have a traumatic event? All of that is going to dictate where their health is currently at right now. It's never the exact same for every individual, especially when you're dealing with something like the gut. It's so particular, right? It's so nuanced. And so I believe that understanding you, the individual, is so important and should be the first place that you always start. And so when someone comes to me for a consultation, that's the job. We go through a pretty deep questionnaire, and I do like to get nitty gritty with them. I ask them some uncomfortable questions with their permission, because if they don't share that with me, it makes it difficult for me to really help them in the way that they need. So understanding their history, understanding if their mother had gut issues before. We talked about this, but if people don't know out there, gut issues can actually be transferred from placenta and from childbirth. So if your mother already had, she was predispositioned to gut issues that she didn't know that she had, which is very likely because even now gut health is still not really studied about a lot. It's still a little bit not mainstream yet. It's getting there, and podcasts like this help. But there's no way that a mother 40 years ago knew she had gut health. There's no way. And so if she did have things like psoriasis or things that were showing that she did have like IBS going on, that composition of her microbiome and those bacteria are going to be passed down to the baby. And so even understanding that is really important. And so that's always the first place. And then my favorite part is doing functional blood testing. And so I'm a functional practitioner, and what we do is we utilize data and evidence through blood testing, and I should say optimized blood testing, to really understand the root cause of the individual's health challenges. And I love it. I'm such a nerd. I used to be a data analyst before all of this. And I love it. I love that data can really tell us what is going on with this person. And then that allows me to give them a tailored plan that is designed for their body, right? For the markers that are either high or low for them individually, for the deficiencies that they specifically have, for the health handbrakes that we can see in their bloods, whether it's inflammation, whether it's elevated insulin, whether it's, their platelets or the inflammation's really high. It allows me to really give them something that is tailored to what they need. And so I was saying to you earlier off camera that, there's no cookie cutter protocols with me. And I believe that's why the treatment is so effective. And so I think functional blood testing is very powerful. It's probably one of the main things that I do that I guess differentiates me from some nutritionists and naturopaths, is just having that level of testing that really gives us that deeper insight.
Amazing. And so once you do get this in-depth, comprehensive information, right, about like just the story of your client, but then also the data backing up, okay, what is it that might be causing inflammation? What is it that might be causing these issues that this client is feeling? Once you do understand that, how does the process look from there all the way to getting that person results, getting that person, one, like a streamlined roadmap to healing their gut?
So in functional medicine, once we complete the... Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Could I get a napkin? My nose is so runny. I will ask the question more. This is so... I'm so sorry. Give me one second.
Okay.
Super unprofessional, Ash. I'm so sorry.
No, you're so good that you can it's so good you can just edit it out, so no worries.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like you can edit it, right? I got you. Don't worry. It's 100% edited. Right? I don't know why. I think you're just runny nose today. I gotta work on my immune system, but it's all good.
Yeah,
we got this.
That's okay. I'll give you a protocol for that. You'll be fine.
Thanks. All right. Moving on, Ash. I wanted to ask you a little bit about. Yeah, I got you. Don't worry. It's super key to understand, one, the story, why it is your client had these root cause issues, and then along with that, having the proper data to make sense of what might be happening in that client's body. Once you are properly empowered with that information, how does the process look where you're trying to understand how to build that roadmap for them and give them the proper tools so they can long-term understand how to take a streamlined approach towards healing?
So it's important to understand, before I jump into how I do it, that in functional medicine, the basis of everything that we do, Trishy, is combining evidence-based practices and conventional modalities, so conventional medicine modalities, with Eastern modalities. And that's where we get the integrative part. And so when we're helping a patient or an individual, we really focus on nutrition as medicine, because really food is medicine, right? Especially before, we patented drugs these days, we used to get that from herbs. We used to get that from spices. We used to get that from food. Literally, I think people forget that. So nutrition is probably the crux of everything that we do. And then we really look at the body as a whole, okay? Because the body is a system and everything is working synergistically. So that means that we need to treat the body as a whole, right? And so with that in mind, that's when we put together a tailored protocol. Now, after working with women for about 2 years, Trishy, I realized that they need more than food and supplements. Okay, because that's kind of where a lot of practitioners base their work around, food and supplements, right? Which can be very, very effective and almost can do the job for a majority of people. But I found that after working with women for 2 years, that there was 5 or 4 main areas that really needed support across hundreds of women, right? And these were the 4 key areas. And so I put that into what I call my F5 method. So the 4 key pillars plus the 1 being your blood testing creates the 5, right? So the first thing is functional blood testing. Once we have that data and information, I create a nutrition plan. Okay, so that's the first pillar. Our second pillar is creating a tailored nutrition plan for them. Because nutrition, like I said, it's medicine. So your food can literally have the ability to alleviate depression, alleviate anxiety, to remove joint pain, to resolve autoimmunity, to literally get rid of your bloating, to reverse PCOS, to reverse insulin resistance, to reverse blood sugar, right? All of that can be done just through food alone. So that is the number one thing I do after the functional blood test, okay? The third thing is then, of course, addressing the gut, right? So I come in with tailored supplements to start addressing their gut health and really making sure that it's tailored based on their bloods, because you wouldn't believe the amount of women that come to me saying, oh, I bought this supplement, I bought that, I've probably spent thousands of dollars, and it hasn't really gotten them the results. So it's really giving them the correct dosages and the stuff that actually works, right? So it's always good to have a practitioner in your corner that's telling you what to do. So really addressing the gut, because the gut is impacting as well the neurotransmitters in their brain. So if they do have depression, mood disorders, anxiety, their mental health, which I'm very passionate about, my own journey, it's affecting whether they're able to lose weight, or in some cases with SIBO, people can put on weight without even doing anything. And gut will also drive up inflammation. It will drive up immune dysregulation. It is the crux of what drives a lot of autoimmunity and a lot of chronic health conditions. So addressing that third pillar of their gut health is going to have a phenomenal ripple effect on all aspects of their health: immune, inflammation, blood sugar, hormones, and the list goes on, right? The fourth thing in my F5 method is focusing on the nervous system, which I love talking about. But I don't know if we have enough time. I'll be here all day. But really making sure we're creating safety in your body again. Because one thing we know with absolute certainty, and science backs this up, is that if you are living in a state of chronic fight or flight, which drives a lot of gut issues, right? It's connected. It's going to make it very difficult for us to heal the gut, to bring down that inflammation, to bring down that insulin, and etc. Okay? Because the body doesn't feel safe enough for things to fall back into balance. So addressing that is absolutely a non-negotiable, especially for the society that we currently live in. It's a high stress society, and I don't think we can deny that, right? So that fourth pillar, I realized after helping so many women, this needs to be a pillar, because you can't do the rest of the work without this being in a good place. And I think a lot of people miss that part of treatment, right? I have a very special interest in it. So I've done extra studies on it with a guy named Perry Nicholson. Do you know him?
I don't have the privilege of knowing, no, but I will search him up promptly after this.
Yeah. He's like a specialist in the nervous system and the lymphatic system. So that fourth pillar is the nervous system and your lymphatic system, right? So making sure your lymphatic system and your detox pathways are open. And the crazy thing is, nervous system work and lymphatic work, Trishi, are free. You don't need to pay for it. You just need someone to tell you that you have these gifts inside your body that you can literally use to heal yourself if someone teaches you how to do it. So when you join my program, when people work with me, I teach them nervous system drills. I teach them how to do lymphatic draining so they can also heal themselves. And I love that it's free. And that's why I love teaching people that, all right? Because if I can give people more access and more knowledge so they can learn how to be the practitioner of their own health, that's my job done. That is my goal, right? The fifth pillar is mindset. And so a lot of coaches, from my observation, they don't really include mindset support, right? Each coach develops their own program based on what they like and what they think works well. For me, mindset is so goddamn important. All right, so I really love that I can tell that you're really into your personal development and psychology as well. One of my favorite sayings, Trishi, is that you cannot solve a problem. You probably know this one. You cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. You know that quote?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Albert Einstein. Yeah.
I I didn't know who it was from, but I was like, I definitely heard this quote. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And it's absolutely true, because if you're operating in a state where you don't believe you can get better and you're constantly telling yourself that, you're constantly, self-critical, constantly focusing on the negative things going on instead of focusing on all of the possibilities that there are there for you, right? That are proven to work. You will then affect your subconscious, which then affects your behavior. And that will then lead you to being stuck in sabotaging habits, behaviors, or loops that keep a lot of people stuck from overcoming their health challenges. So having a mentor or having a practitioner that can help you just through, I guess, real life coaching and support, help you slowly start shifting your mindset, you can achieve anything. And so, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but the mind-gut connection, you can't heal one without the other. And so if we can support both, fantastic. And so that's my 5 pillars of what I call my F5 method. And I pride myself on that method because it works. And I believe it's really powerful because, as you can see, Trishy, we're targeting all aspects of the individual's health and restoring balance to those aspects.
It sounds so powerful. I did want to understand a little bit of the nitty gritty of the nutrition aspect of things, right? The step 2, after the blood testing. What are your tools that you usually use when kind of mapping out the nutrition plan for the client?
So all of it is based on blood work, right? Because if someone has leaky gut, a lot of the time, not all the time, because as I said, it's nuanced, everyone's a little bit different. A lot of people will have histamine issues, okay? Because you're not producing enough DAO enzyme to break down your histamine because of the leaky gut. So histamine becomes a really big trigger for the individual. So based on their bloods, I will then create their nutrition plan that will be a low histamine diet. And so I really love educating the people I work with, especially the women I work with. So I try to make it really easy for them to understand basic nutrition. Because that's the thing, it doesn't need to be complex. It can be very basic. So I give them a list of these are the proteins, these are the carbs, these are the fats, these are the vegetables, these are the fruits that you should be eating that are going to be medicinal for you. That's going to drop that inflammation, that's going to calm the gut, that's going to support your liver, that's going to support your stomach acid, etc. Right? Because remember, food's medicine, right? So I give them a list of foods based on their bloods. So low histamine is one example. Another example is for a lot of people that have SIBO or dysbiosis, which I know you've talked about on your show a lot of them can't tolerate FODMAP. So it is important to, again, give them a tailored nutrition plan, because if you give them FODMAP foods, it's going to make it so difficult for them to bring that inflammation and irritation down to heal the gut. So based on their bloods, to answer your question in short, that will help me determine what macro and micronutrients I need to give them. And I supply it to them in a very easy to understand list that they can literally, I love visuals, especially for my ADHD clients. We all love visuals that they can print and put it on their fridge, right? So then every day they're constantly being reminded, these are the foods that are going to get me better.
Love it. Love it. I wanted to get your take on hydration, right? That's another key that I hear time and time again. Is that a part of your regimen or routine that you prescribe to your client as well?
Yes, I love electrolytes. I really love electrolytes because people don't realize that a lot of the time they are dehydrated, and we can see it in blood markers, right? We can see that their electrolyte mineral balances are imbalanced. So their sodium, potassium, magnesium are imbalanced. And if people don't know out there, that leads to things like adrenal fatigue. That leads to energy dips. That leads to having low energy a lot of the time, because our body is operating from, let's look at it like a pump. Those minerals are pumps and they're pumping us energy, right? So if those minerals are imbalanced or they're deficient because you're not getting adequate hydration, then you will be tired all the time. And I see this so much. So I have a foundational protocol that I start everyone on. And one of the first things is on it. Guess what? It's electrolytes, right? It's getting them to hydrate properly. Like literally, Trishy, the basics of their health is what I'm teaching them to restore. Hydration, getting them drinking enough water, and a very simple thing that you guys can do at home without having to spend, money on electrolyte is literally just make sure it's filtered water, right? I can actually give you guys a link to a cheap, it's under $100, a cheap filter jug that actually gets rid of the fluoride, chloride, heavy metals, etc., which topic for another day. It's a big problem. And making sure it's filtered water, adding something like pink salt or Celtic sea salt, because that's more a good quality salt that has all of those minerals like magnesium, potassium, sodium, literally putting half a teaspoon in and then adding in half a lemon or half a lime. That is a natural form of electrolytes. Also, if you use coconut water as the base, right? And those things are so easily accessible at the grocery store. So just by waking up in the morning, my recommendation on electrolytes is yes, everyone should be consuming them. You don't have to take a supplement if you don't have the funds. You can literally follow that cocktail. Coconut water or filtered water, half a teaspoon of good quality salt, Celtic or pink, Himalayan salt, and then half a lemon or half a lime. And that will support your mineral balance.
Love it. Along with the blood tests, Ash, do you also sometimes consider like a GI map or a stool test to understand like the microbiome side of things, like the different bacterial strains, or do you feel that might not be necessary to understand the root cause?
This is a great question because I think different practitioners will have a different answer. There's a lot that you can get out of a functional blood test. There's a lot of correlations that we make between markers and symptoms that really give us pretty clear insights as to what's going on in someone's gut. So a lot of the time that does the job, and it's also a lot more cost effective, right? I only recommend a GI map, and I was literally saying this to a woman today in a consult. She said, Ash, do you think I should get a GI map? And I said, I don't think you need it, right? I think we have enough information on this functional blood test. The reason why I didn't recommend it, and I don't always, is because the blood test just gives us a lot of information if you interpret it correctly, okay? If you know what you're looking at, which, functional practitioners will know. I think GI maps are very useful. I do use them in very sinister cases where they have a really, really severe gut issue going on and they've had it for a very, very long time. I will say to them, hey, look, I think it's beneficial that we do get a bit of a deeper test because I love a GI map. They're so fun to geek out on. You can literally see everything in a GI map. If there's parasites, if there's candida, if there's yeast, literally what bacteria are high, what bacteria are low. And you can just get so nitty gritty with a GI map. They are expensive, which is why I only recommend it if I feel the individual really needs it.
Right. Gotcha. Earlier on, when you were sharing your story and when you were sharing that the blood test that you took, the medical provider said everything looks normal, right? And you were like, oh, okay. And it was our upset because you didn't understand what it was that was driving the symptoms or the uncomfort that you're feeling. What is the difference between those blood tests versus these functional blood tests?
That's a great question, Trishi. I'm glad you asked it because I think it would help so many people to be a little bit more educated in their options and also the differences. So, I mean, I had to go through my own journey and study it to find out. So let's share that information. First of all, conventional blood testing. How do you think they create those blood test ranges? Where do you think they get that data from? Can you take a guess?
Just like average metrics that they might have. Like ideally, this is what a human's metric KPIs business manager talk. This is what like the ideal ranges should be for average person.
Yes, somewhat true. So they get a sample of a population, right? So let's say they sample, 100,000 people, right? They get a sample of the population and then they utilize a bell curve analysis, right? To create an average of their blood test. So they get a sample size of people, they capture the data from those people's blood tests, okay? And then they create that bell curve analysis to determine the average. Now, the problem with this is that the samples that they're getting the blood tests from are from people that are going to hospitals, people that are going to doctors' offices. And have a think about this. When you're going to the hospital or doctor's office, are you usually in optimal health or are you usually sick with something going on? Exactly. So when you zoom out and you start understanding this, you think, what the hell? That's crazy. But this is actually what's happening, right? So that's the first factor is they're getting a sample size or sample data from people that are going to the doctor's office or hospitals that are already sick or suffering with some kind of symptom. Okay. So you're then starting to compare your blood test to a sick person when you really look at it. On top of that, they're not factoring in with this sample size that the individuals might be already struggling with some thyroid conditions, with immune conditions. They're already experiencing symptoms. That's why they're there at the doctor's or hospital's office. They may be on medications. They may have lifestyle factors influencing their health. That's not captured or integrated in that data. Okay. So as you can start to understand, there's a lot of holes in that. When I first found this out, it blew my mind. And I was telling someone today this as well. And she was gobsmacked. She could not believe it. And you wouldn't believe the amount of women that come to me and say, oh, Ash, but the doctor says my blood test is normal. Like, how can that be? Why is you all saying it's high and then they're saying it's normal? And so that conventional blood range is based technically on a sick population. Because when you look at the population, Trishy, 1 in 2 have a chronic illness and 88% of us are metabolically ill. And those are the samples we're getting it from. Okay? So based on that, functional blood testing, we base it on an optimized individual's health. So we use tighter ranges, right? We use smaller ranges based on optimized health. That is the difference. And we sample those reference ranges from healthy individuals that don't have any underlying health issues going on, that don't have any symptoms going on. So just looking at that from afar, I mean, you tell me, do you think that there would be a big difference?
Absolutely. Just it's like functional testing. It's like you have a higher standard altogether.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it. Yeah. Higher standard for your health. Yeah. Because when you do look around, I don't know, you tell me, but when you look around, you start observing when you go to the office or you listen, to your family members and things like that, you do start to observe that a lot of people are struggling with health issues, right? And 1 in 2 people have chronic health issues. So, we really need to start understanding that, okay, if I have all of these symptoms and the doctor's telling me it's normal, are these symptoms normal? That's always the first question to ask yourself. Right? Because your body's always communicating through symptoms. One thing I didn't mention, I think it's important to understand with the conventional blood testing, is that it is designed to detect an illness once it's already out of range. There's zero opportunity for prevention. So you might go to, I always use this example, let's just say your thyroid level, TSH, is between 0 and 10, right? You could be having all the symptoms, Trishy. You're tired, you're constipated, you have low libido, your hair is thinning, you're putting on weight, you can't sleep at night. You've got all the symptoms for hypothyroidism, right? So you go to the doctor, he does the blood test. But then you could be coming in at a 9. So technically you're not out of range. So they're not going to detect that you have hypothyroidism. But you're on the cusp of literally having hypothyroidism. All right, so then you go home. Same thing happened to me. You'll go home. You'll get on with your life. You won't have any change in your diet or lifestyle. You come back to the doctor's office 6 months later. Oh, what do you know, Trishy? You actually have hypothyroidism. Your test is now coming in at 15. That could have been prevented using intervention like optimal ranges in functional medicine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So much so that I actually want to dive a little deeper into hypothyroidism. I feel like in my limited knowledge base of the gut, of just like the gut microbiome, I have so much more to learn. I feel like there's a very zoomed in perspective of, okay, this is the gut, these are hormones. But I don't understand like the bird's view perspective of how everything is connected, right? How is it that our gut functioning affects our thyroid level? And what is it that the thyroid is ultimately supposed to do in our body? If you could shed some light on that, please.
Mm. Well, first thing, I'm going to answer your question with a question. What do you think your hormones, such as your thyroid, what do they use as fuel? What gives them fuel to operate efficiently?
The nutrients and the
Yes, smart man. Yeah, nutrients. And so the first answer to your question is that when you have gut issues going on, whether it's low stomach acid, whether it's SIBO, whether it's dysbiosis, whether it's leaky gut, okay, your ability to absorb nutrients is impaired. Okay, malabsorption is one of the biggest symptoms of those conditions. You are not able to absorb nutrients efficiently. Okay, I always say to people, think of it like maybe 10 years ago when your gut was thriving, you were able to absorb 100% of all those wonderful nutrients from your foods and your supplements. But then now over time, because of so many factors, antibiotics, stress that's not managed, processed foods, gluten, the way that it's produced now is a big problem. Being on the OCP or oral contraceptive pill, over the counter medications like ibuprofen, Panadol, overuse of that. All those things over time, food poisoning, the list goes on. But all those things over time start to cause damage to your stomach acid, to your gut lining, causing those gut issues. And that impairs your body's ability to then absorb nutrients effectively. And so if you look at it this way, Trishy, if you're driving a car, the car needs fuel, right? Same thing with your hormones. Hormones need fuel in nutrients. That's the fuel, it's the nutrient to operate optimally. So if you're deficient in zinc, selenium, your B vitamins, iron, there's a big link with iron and thyroidism, your thyroid is going to start breaking down. Because what would happen to a car if it stopped getting the fuel that it needs? Would it be driving or would it be breaking down? Exactly. So the same thing is happening with the thyroid. So that's the first thing to understand, and how the gut, in particular nutrient absorption, is affecting your thyroid health and also your other hormones in the body. That's just one example. The second thing is that a lot of people that actually have thyroid conditions, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's about 80% of people, maybe even higher, have Hashimoto's, which is Hashimoto's of the thyroid driven by autoimmunity. So the question is, okay, where is the autoimmunity coming from? And we know that leaky gut and dysbiosis and things like SIBO all drive up chronic immune dysregulation. Okay, when you have those issues, you are in a state of chronic inflammation and chronic immune dysregulation, because you're getting toxins, bacteria, particles that are seeping into your bloodstream. Because of those gut issues, it's allowing them to come into the bloodstream, and that's triggering a huge inflammatory response in the body. That's triggering the immune system into overdrive. So your immune system right now, if you've got it, is just working tirelessly to try and ironically protect the body. That's what the immune response is. But what's actually happening is that inflammation and that immune response that's coming from those underlying root causes of the gut is driving up antibodies, which is therefore then attacking the thyroid. Can you see how it's connected? Yeah, and I didn't learn that until I got told I had leaky gut, and I started, rabbit holing on the internet at the time, because I hadn't been studied yet, functional medicine. But I found out that it was such a big driver for those elevated antibodies that were essentially destroying my thyroid. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the gut is a big part of Hashimoto's and healing Hashimoto's and thyroid conditions.
That is super. Yeah, that makes it definitely more crystal clear. When we talk about thyroid specifically, though, and we talk about the hormones it releases, what exactly are what exactly, if you were to share like the function of the thyroid? I understand that like the dysbiosis and the inflammation and the autoimmune response is what's attacking the thyroid. But if we can shed some light on the actual function of the thyroid, what would that be?
Well, I like to look at the thyroid, Trishy, as a machine, right? It's working side by side with your metabolism. And so when you have things like gut issues going on and dysbiosis and leaky gut, you're not absorbing minerals. And a lot of people, they're yo-yo dieting or under eating because, one of the symptoms of thyroid issues is weight gain. They're under eating, they're highly stressed. That starts to slow down that thyroid function, which then starts to slow down the metabolism. And when people have a sluggish thyroid and therefore then a slow metabolism, they start to feel quite sluggish, and it also impacts their appetite and their satiety, and also starts to impact their energy as well. And so, for me right now, that's the best answer I can give you on thyroid function. I'm having a bit of a mind blank on that one, so maybe next one.
You're absolutely fine. You're absolutely fine. When you were mentioning that TH4, right? Would I be correct in assuming that is one of those key hormones that's helping us, helping our digestive system, helping it prompt digestion?
I've never heard the connection between T4 and digestion.
No, right? Okay. Then what is? May I ask? The T. Oh, so it's not TH4, it's T4. Excuse my ignorance. So it's T. So what exactly is that T4 element?
Well, the body needs to actually produce thyroid hormone, and then it actually then needs to be converted. So T3 and T4 help the body create it and then convert it to be utilized and absorbed in the body. So when the conversion is not happening because of high stress, malabsorption of nutrients, like I mentioned, those underlying factors going on, it does affect the T4's ability to be converted and then be utilized in the body so the thyroid can function optimally. So if it's not converting and it's not being utilized, the thyroid's not going to be able to do its job.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's super interesting. It's like the basics of having a healthy diet. We don't understand the nitty-gritty reason why, but it's like just all the body's functioning and processing it requires, if it's even just enzymatic activity of like converting T3 to T4, or just overall how our body functions. Every single thing that's producing these positive changes in our body, they need that fuel of these minerals, of these nutrients. And that's why we need to make sure we're properly satiated and properly having a well-balanced meal.
Yeah, and I think the thing that you missed there is digesting, making sure you're actually digesting efficiently. That is one of in functional medicine, when we deal with the gut, Trishy, we deal with what we call a top-down approach. And so we need to fix the gut in that order. And one of the first things is digestion. Because if you're not digesting and absorbing properly, then, it doesn't matter how perfect your diet is, it's not going to take you very far. And I've literally seen this because I've worked with bodybuilders that eat perfectly, some would say. I've worked with gym owners, I've worked with athletes, and because of the stress that's been going on in their body because of underlying factors, they're just not digesting well. And so even though they eat clean, their body's just not getting the nutrients that it needs. So not only is having the right foods important, but making sure you're actually digesting it efficiently. If you told me like 10 years ago I'd be so passionate about talking about digestion, I would never believe you.
Yeah.
Never believe.
But it's like it's as you said, it's like when you mature and when you realize why it is you must be feeling the way you are, it's like everything goes back to just that, right? It's like that root, which is how are we digesting our food? How are we absorbing those nutrients to be able to function optimally? When we move forward to the nervous system, I was very interested when you were talking about that. I've heard a lot about this idea of rest and digest, but then fight or flight. When we're in a go state, it's like our body is prioritizing survival instead of digestion. But when we're in a rest and digest state, that's where our body is primed to digest because it knows it's in a safe place, as you said. What are the small tools and tactics that you use to try to help prime that's like a Tony Robbins term, prime, try to prime them into more of a parasympathetic, more of a relaxed state?
The first thing, you might be surprised by this, is how they eat. Right? People probably think I was going to say something like meditation, but how you eat is so important. And so making sure we're switching to a parasympathetic state, rest and digest before we eat, can really skyrocket your digestion and your stomach acid production and, your enzyme production, so you can break down your nutrients effectively to be used in the body. So very simple tactics that I get people on. I mentioned I had like a foundational protocol before. One of the first things I teach them to do, other than hydration properly, is to eat properly. And so very simple things, Trishy, that people can do listening as well is, first of all, making sure you're not eating in a stressed environment. So not eating at your desk, not eating with your phone, just really actually sitting down in an eating zone. So you can create whatever eating zone you want. Could be your balcony, could be your backyard, could be, in the picnic area, outside work, whatever it is. If you can eat in the sun, even better, because your nervous system is going to feel calm in the sun. So just eating in a stress-free zone, number one, right? Then actually taking 5, very simple, and it's free, 5 deep breaths before you eat, just to calm that nervous system into parasympathetic state, right? It's free. Then you'll smell your food, okay? It's going to sound crazy to some people, right? But actually smelling your food and allowing saliva to produce will signal chemicals and messages from the brain to your stomach to produce stomach acid. So you can do what?
Digest
food. Yeah. So just by simply smelling your food and allowing those chemical reactions to occur, right? Because we produce saliva for a reason. Why is that? Now you've just learned one of the reasons is to send those signals to the stomach so it knows we're going to eat, so the body can produce digestive enzymes and stomach acid. So smelling your food for at least 30 seconds, saying something that you're grateful for, can also be a good habit to have with your meal. A prayer, whatever it is for you, to shift you into that parasympathetic state. And then the last thing, very simple practice. So this becomes a bit of a process, like a bit of a ritual now, right? You're eating, is just chewing your food. Like literally chewing your food 20, 30 times, like really, really chewing it. Because have a think about this. Maybe you, Trishi, can be honest, and people that listening, think about when you eat your food. Are you just taking 3 or 4 bites and then swallowing it? Or are you really chewing it down 20, 30 times?
I think more often than I should. I definitely do. I'm on the go when I should be a bit more mindful, for sure.
Yeah. So those simple practices, and I like to say the word ritual, is because ritual makes it, it's something that you look forward to, that just becomes something that you do for yourself, right? It's a ritual that's benefiting you. So that is a very simple way to prime not only your digestion, but prime your nervous system through those mechanical processes that get switched off when we're doing the opposite of those things. Eating on the go, eating at your desk, eating stressed, not taking breaths before you eat, scoffing your food down. All right, so that's a very simple way that you can support your nervous system, but also your digestion.
Love it. Have
you heard that before? Have you had someone talk about eating practices before, Trishi?
Yes, and it's it's so interesting because when you hear something so key time and time again, it really just resonates even more because I personally find it very interesting how, and not interesting, but also very like more heartwarming that people from all across the world, whether it's Australia, UK, America, they have the same principles when it comes to how it is we want to tap into that rest and digest. It's really universal.
Because it works.
Yeah, because it works.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's literally science. People think, why am I going to smell my food? Like, this person's crazy. But I'm like, hey, it's actual science. I think there's a crazy study, Trishi, that says you can produce up to 40% more stomach acid just by doing those practices, in particular,
Wow.
smelling your food, chewing your food.
Wow.
That's crazy. 40%.
That's wild.
That's wild.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Talking about those issues, like, and these are like sub root causes, right? Like the low stomach acid, the sluggish gut motility you were talking about, and then of course that
Yeah.
dysbiosis. Do you see all of these, like when you look at the issues of constipation, bloating, and diarrhea, right? Those are usually like the more common ones. What,
Yeah.
like, what do you see being the root cause of these types of issues? Given like the list of these three, whether it's like low stomach acid, whether it's just sluggish gut motility, or if it's just like that dysbiosis in the gut, meaning like maybe like a misbalance of the good and bad bacteria.
One of the most common, I would say, is sluggish motility. Yeah. Because just something as simple as your body being stuck again in that fight or flight will literally cause paresthesia of the intestines, which then causes sluggish motility. Being dehydrated can also impact your motility, right? Not getting enough nutrients can also impact your motility. So it's never just one answer either. It's looking at those factors. Is the person stressed? Are they hydrated? Are they, getting good minerals? But I would say sluggish motility is one of the biggest ones. Yeah. The second one I would say is dysbiosis. Yeah. If it's chronic constipation and you're throwing everything at it, every supplement, every food, every practice, and it's just not budging. And sometimes it happens. It's so frustrating. I like to alleviate that symptom before we do antimicrobials. But for those really sinister clients that have had them for these issues for a long time, sometimes it just doesn't budge and go as smoothly until you start introducing those antimicrobials to remove those bacteria that are causing that sluggish motility for them specifically.
When we were talking about those antimicrobials, I know how big of a proponent you are in food being medicine, but of course, sometimes some targeted supplementation can be huge needle movers towards progress. Could you walk us through when you do decide that antimicrobials are a necessary part of a regimen for a client?
So, first of all, if we do something like a GI map and it does reveal that they have a particular bacterial overgrowth or a candida or something like that, or parasites, we will definitely need to do antimicrobials, right?
Right.
But if someone doesn't do that test, I assess their symptoms. So when we're healing the gut, or I'm healing the gut, we follow an approach, like I mentioned before, a top-down approach. So we'll spend a couple of weeks fixing their stomach acid and digestion, calming that nervous system, supporting the mind-gut connection. Next, we'll then do the second part of healing the gut, which is fixing your leaky gut. And for a majority of the people, that leaky gut protocol will alleviate a lot of their symptoms. All right, so then looking at that, we look at the symptoms, we do another assessment, we'll see, all your symptoms have improved. Karen, you don't need to do an antimicrobial protocol, which I really try to avoid them unless it's absolutely necessary because they can be quite harsh. And any of those listeners have done one? Have you done one?
I haven't had the privilege, no.
No, you don't want to be privileged. They can be tough. It's good to have the right support though. So once we do the leaky gut, if they're not presenting any more symptoms, then that's a pretty clear indication we don't need to go down that route. Because a lot of the time, SIBO or candida and parasite symptoms do overlap with leaky gut symptoms. A lot of the symptoms are very similar. So when we get to a leaky gut protocol and they are still presenting symptoms, that's when we would start a deeper assessment to try and figure out, do they have methane SIBO? And just asking specific questions because they have different symptoms. Is it hydrogen SIBO? Is it both of them? Because we know there's 3 types of SIBO. And then from there would determine, okay, what are the antimicrobials we need to use?
Super key. Along with antimicrobials, are you a proponent of... Well, when we talk about antimicrobials, though, and when we were talking about these phases, right, where the first phase is more of just the mind-gut connection and figuring out if just proper diet, hydration, and, of course, lymphatic drainage and just detox, if that is enough, then it's great. what does the time period look like in each of these stages?
How long is a piece of string? Is that saying? Yeah. How long is a piece of string? So I would say with my clients, I like to turn, if they were to do the whole process, so like fixing phase 1, which is their digestion, phase 2, leaky gut, phase 3, antimicrobials, and then a repair protocol, I would get them out in and out under 9 months, right? I get them to do the repair on their own, right? I do it for a few weeks with them. But it's really hard to say because there's 2 different types of leaky gut, which means that one type, I can't remember the name right now, sorry, transcellular and incellular. I don't know if that's correct, so maybe I won't go into that. But with leaky gut, for example, someone could have had leaky gut for 10 years, which means the severity of their leaky gut and permeability is going to be a lot different to Joe sitting next to you who's only had it for 3 months, lucky him, right? But he's intervened early. So then his treatment path will be a lot quicker than mine. And so roughly a leaky gut protocol, you want to be on it for at least 8 to 12 weeks, I would say, in my opinion. I have never seen anything turn around quicker than that. And I believe a lot of other gut practitioners that I know in Australia also kind of go by that time frame as well. But again, it really just depends on the individual. But that's kind of a rough estimation on what a leaky gut protocol would look like, for example.
Got it. And when we think about it, like in the grand scheme of things, people usually do have because for example, in my family, I know my aunt, she has these gut issues, recurring gut issues that manifest as constipation for her, and also just like these hives, sorry, not hives, rashes, skin rashes, right? And now she's working with a naturopath to try to find the root cause, and it's like most of the people in my loved ones group, the issues that they've had with their gut, it's been something that they've had for like 5 to 10 years. And the fact that you can fully transform that within a nice 9-month period, it gives us a lot of hope, right? Because it's not that much time if you look at it grand scheme of things. And especially given that you're now being empowered with the right tools and habits that are going to optimize your gut health.
That's so true. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. I think sometimes people say, what, that's so long? But I always say the same thing, Tricia. I'm like, you have to just zoom out for a little bit and have a bit of awareness and say, and I always ask people this, right? How long have you had these issues for? Oh, 10 years, Ash. Said, okay, do you think 6 months is a pretty quick time to turn things around then? Considering you've had this for 10 years. And they say, yeah, Ash, yeah, you're right, actually. It's just, again, coming to that mindset, giving people the correct expectations, giving them a realistic time frame that they can get their head around. That's also one thing I've learned, after practicing for the last few years, is giving people like a candid answer so they have the right expectation. Because if you tell them, oh, this will be done in 6 weeks, which maybe some people do just to try and get clients, maybe they do, they're going to be disappointed, and then they're going to be demotivated. They're going to feel distrust, and then they're going to fall off the wagon. So I think, having that time frame is important. Being patient with your body, being kind to your body, being compassionate, and, just looking at it from that perspective.
Absolutely. Moving on, Ash, I wanted to ask a little bit about you personally. When you are providing care to these clients, do you sometimes feel like if it is something that's more mentally induced, like the issues are more maybe due to past trauma or maybe due to something beyond actually what's something beyond maybe a food intolerance or a food sensitivity or an allergy, it's actually something mental? Does it do you ever feel like you have to really just walk through someone through a trauma or something, more like a psychologist instead of more like a gut healer?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I'm sure you've talked about this on your podcast a lot before, Trishy, but emotions and childhood trauma can play a huge part on that mind-gut connection. In Eastern medicine, and I love this part, in Eastern medicine, they believe, especially Chinese medicine, that emotions that are stored and blocked in the body do manifest as illness. And I've literally seen it firsthand in myself and with my clients. And so when I do see that someone is struggling a lot more than others, and it does seem like it's a bit of a deeper a mental thing that they need support with, I will always do my duty of care and say, hey, look, I think you would probably really benefit from this additional support. What do you think about that? You know, there are a lot of people that are hesitant to therapy, but, you know, it's our job as a practitioner is to just show them their options and educate them and empower them to make those choices for themselves. But when you do work with clients that don't want to go down that route, it can be really difficult. It is hard because a lot of it can come from the mental aspect, and that's driving that triggered response in the gut and then therefore the body.
Right. Absolutely. And yeah, I ask this like time and time again on the in the podcast, because a lot of what I was trying to do when it comes to just the overall like just trying to be a part of helping people understand how to optimize your gut. I looked at my cards, right? I looked at what is like a small skill set that I might have in this to like create some sort of positive change for people with gut issues. And I realized that the best leverage mover for me is just amplifying the voice of healers like you, right? Instead of trying to what I mean, of course I am learning as much as I can. There's like this FODMAP certification from Australia that I'm working on, and I'm trying to understand more of the, yeah, Monash University. And I'm trying to understand like, you did? Oh, cool. And I'm trying to understand like the nutritional side of things. But I feel like the best way to create positive change is to make sure that you're empowered with all the school tools and skill and people that might be able to help you while you're consulting a client, right? So making sure that you have the proper, like you can say, board of members or board of advisory that can help you given like whichever route the conversation takes when you're speaking with your client, whether it's very trauma induced and you know that someone with maybe like an EMDR specialist or someone who's more well versed with how to navigate difficult issues and difficult conversations, maybe you have them at your disposal. And then at the same time, if it's very chronic and you see like maybe after a GI map that, wow, like the inflammatory markers, they're very high, and this actually might be a case of more inflammatory bowel disease, that this is probably where we might need some conventional intervention, and we might need to have someone more like a gastroenterologist give his advice or her advice, right? So overall, does that sound like something that would benefit you?
Well, having, just to make sure I understand, like having those, I guess, connections with other practitioners in different realms of expertise to help my clients.
Yes, like basically like our so like the vision that we were trying to create, right, was having a platform where you would have at your disposal these experts, right? So if you do feel there is a need for your client to see someone else, instead of saying you can find them, you can say, here, I know someone who I trust to give you this care.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have already a little pocket of people that I can refer to. It's been so helpful. I actually had a friend that offered some free counseling sessions, and I offered it to the women in my community, and a lot of them actually took it. So that actually shows me that people do want that support, and maybe there's just things like financial costs that are getting in the way, which is a bit disheartening for a lot of people. But yes, absolutely. I think having a team of people, sometimes that's what it takes. And unfortunately, it just, for some people, it's just inaccessible financially. And so I think that's why I try my best in what I've learned and my extra studies to really give people that that mindset coaching and that nervous system support, so they can at least make it some of the way, right? And
Yeah.
creating those shifts mentally themselves. But yes, I think having a team that you can refer people out to is really powerful.
Love it, love it. I'll definitely keep you posted. But to wrap up, Ash, if you had one message of hope, if someone is looking at this conversation, listening to this conversation, and trying to make sense of their gut issues, what is a message of hope that you'd like to share?
My message of hope would be, don't give up on yourself and don't believe the narrative that you cannot be helped or that you're broken or that there's something wrong with you, because there's so many modalities, whether it's functional medicine, whether it's, Ayurvedic medicine, there's so many modalities out there that can help you. It's just about having the courage and belief that, you know what, I do deserve better and I can get the help I need. Maybe I haven't gotten it so far. I'm just going to try different things, because you will get there if you give yourself the chance to achieve that, the chance to get better. So, at the end of the day, you deserve it. And, there's going to be the right practitioner out there for you. I promise you that. I think I had to go to like 4 psychologists before I found the one I really connected with. But there's people out there that care. There's people out there that can help you. And there's modalities that do work. And so, just keep researching, keep doing your thing, and just, take small steps forward in any way that you can, because one step forward is better than, no action for 10 plus years. So, I think that's the message.
Ash, thank you so much for all your precious time. Where can people find you and learn more about you?
Well, right now I'm actually just on Instagram. I'm actually really bad with content, so I just I put a lot of my effort into my work, but not so good with content. So I've only got one platform. It's Instagram, which is 360 Health with an underscore, and you can find me there. I've got a website link on there as well. If you need some more information, if you need some free resources, I've got so many free resources that can help you at least get started. If you're not in a place to seek support, but that can definitely help so many people out there, just some of those free resources. So definitely give me a follow, download them, do what you can, reach out if you have any questions. I'm always happy to take some time to point you in the right direction.
And all the information will be provided in the description. So if you do want to reach out to Ash, please do. Ash, again, thank you so much for all your time. And I really hope down the line, maybe in a few months, we can have another conversation and we can hear more about how you're healing more people for good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tushy. I really appreciate that. And I hope that this podcast, or, the stories we've been sharing today and the education and wisdom we've been sharing does spark that light in someone listening that might need help, that you can do it, and that there's people and things out there that can help you. So thanks so much, Trishy. I think we should keep spreading the education, because education is empowerment.
Absolutely. Education is empowerment. Thank you.